Oh, hello, one and all, and welcome to this most recent installment of Under the Influences. I am your host, Jon Phipps, and as you can see, we have proper theme music and a proper intro now, thanks to the wonderful, the incredible, and highly talented Jamie Bennett. Jamie designed that intro for us, and I'm so blessed to use it tonight. And I hope y'all like it because all of us do, and I hope you get the same enjoyment from it. So, tonight we have in the interview chair a lady who is the pride of Pittsburgh, PA. Someone who is a fighter and a lover of all things good and creative and inspiring. And she is here in our midst tonight to talk about her favorite band, Mazzy Star. Now, I must preface this by saying, until she suggested this to me, I thought that Mazzy Star was Fade Into You and that subsequent album, and that was it. But no. That is not the case. I was introduced to the album that we are going to be talking about tonight called She Hangs Brightly, and it is going to be some kind of fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome to the Under the Influences stage, Elana Lange.
Hi,
there
guys.
you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you for letting me talk about this album, too.
Yes. As I've said in the past, this show is partly to break down, bands, singers, and their folks' favorite albums by them, but it's also something for me in a way, in that it helps me expand my musical horizons. And you certainly did with this record. So, well, we'll get to the record in a little bit. We will first talk about Mazzy Star, the band that she has brought to my attention. As most of you know, Mazzy Star through Fade Into You, which I absolutely love that song. I love the song. I love... who is the trucker looking dude that did a cover of it? Can't think of his name. Fucking hell. Jay Mascis. That's who it was. He did a great version. Yeah, he did a wonderful version of Fade Into You. So a little bit on the band here. It says Mazzy Star is an American alt-rock band formed in Santa Monica, California from the remnants of Opal in 1988. Founding member David Roback's friend Hope Sandoval became the group's vocalist when Kendra Smith left Opal. Mazzy Star is best known for the song Fade Into You, which brought the band some success in the mid-1990s and was the group's biggest mainstream hit, earning extensive exposure on MTV, VH1, and radio airplay. Roback and Sandoval were the creative center of the band, with Sandoval as lyricist and Roback as composer of the majority of the band's material until his death in Los Angeles on February 24th, 2020, from metastatic cancer. The band's most recent album, Seasons of Your Day, was released in 2013, followed by the EP Still in 2018. So, talk a little bit about how you first come to love this band.
Okay. So when I was almost a senior in high school, there was a competition, and the competition was to allow somebody in high school to be a DJ on the college radio station for the University of Pittsburgh. And the University of Pittsburgh's radio station at the time had call letters that were in an empty spot on the dial, meaning that we functioned as a normal radio station. So we knew that we were going to lose our call numbers at some point because that wasn't usually what was dedicated for college radio. But while I was there, I was a DJ from 1991 to 1997. We had the same, people could hear us. I live in Pittsburgh. People could hear us all over Pennsylvania, all over Ohio. They could hear us in West Virginia. We had an incredible audience, and we had fans everywhere. I used to get phone calls when I was online or, on the air from places I can't even believe. So in 1991, I met this really amazing group of people, and they introduced me to a lot of music that I had never heard of before. Growing up, I used to be a dancer, so I listened mostly to pop music, Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul, music like that's what you can dance to. So when I first went to the radio station, I knew Depeche Mode and I knew some other stuff, but I didn't know exactly what college music was. That at the time was considered alternative music. And there was a very fine delineation at the time between what was college music, what was alternative music, what was pop music, what was country. Everything fit into its little boxes. So I had a really good friend who was obsessed with dream pop and shoegazer music, and also obsessed with Syd Barrett, who used to sing for Pink Floyd. Mm-hmm. So, as you mentioned, David Roback, he was he's from California, and this actually I learned while preparing for this conversation. He was part of something called the Paisley Underground Movement, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to bring music from the 1960s, so psychedelic music primarily, and they wanted to update it for the 90s. And a lot, that in turn, because there was a lot of flux in college radio music at the time, it was very active during the 90s. And so people would go in and out of different genres. So David Roback, he had a number of bands in the Paisley Underground. And then he went to Opal. And Opal is actually named for a Syd Barrett song called Opal. And so if you were aware of Syd Barrett, it's psychedelic, it's a little chaotic at times, and that was the kind of music that he was interested in playing. So during a tour with the Jesus and Mary chain, Kendra Smith just kind of disappeared from what I gathered. There aren't exact, it's not very clear what exactly happened to her. So David Roback said to Hope Sandoval, let's start another band. And that became Mazzy Star. So one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is, and one of the reasons why I want to talk about it is because, first of all, most people think that Mazzy Star is one-hit wonder that did Fade Into You. And the other thing is most people think Mazzy Star is actually a woman who sings. And Mazzy Star is actually a band, which is made up of Hope Sandoval and David Roback. And that is Mazzy Star. So the two of them started working together primarily. And their first album in 1990, which I actually learned about in 91 when I learned about Opal, because that was when I started at the radio station. I heard it. I was completely obsessed. I still I could just put it on on repeat for 12 days and just listen to it. It's amazing.
What about the record drew you in like so?
Okay, so at the time I was learning a lot about the Cocteau Twins and My Bloody Valentine, and these bands are known as dream pop or shoegazer music. It's a lot of grungy guitars, but it's also extremely melodic. And it's also dark and gloomy, which I have a dark and gloomy side, but it's also, I wouldn't say you can really dance to it exactly, but you can feel it, you know, so it has sort of the same kind of thing that something that you can dance to does, in that it moves you. So when I first heard the album, it like, I just felt different afterwards. Like clearly I couldn't dance, I couldn't get lost in it that way, but I just got lost in it. It was just something I'd never experienced before, because okay, so dream pop is categorized by very like lush lyrics and droning guitars. So it's like a traffic jam with a beautiful garden on top of it. And that's what I always think of it as, is there's all of this grunge and chaos, and then it is held together by this very beautiful melodic, you know, all the singers are very they're called shoegazers because they tend to stare at their feet when they sing. They're shy, but there's something just really beautiful watching somebody just, I mean, they get transformed by their own music, and they're very picky about what they're putting out. So I think that was it.
Yeah. So I guess we can pivot into the album itself. The album that we are here to talk about tonight is She Hangs Brightly. It says here, courtesy of Wikipedia, She Hangs Brightly is the debut solo album by American alt-rock band Mazzy Star. It was released on May 21st, 1990 by Rough Trade Records and re-released by Capitol Records later in that year. Blue Flower was released as a single and reached number 29 on the Billboard Alternative Songs chart. And then 4 years later, Holla reached number 19 on the same chart after the success of Fade Into You. The album cover is a shot of the interior of Hotel Tassel in Brussels. And it says under the composition here, and it goes along with what you were saying as well, it says it showcases the band's trademark effect with haunting guitar work and lyrics, and Hope Sandoval's detached vocals. David Roback's Robbie Krieger-inspired psychedelic, blues slide guitar style can be heard on the song Free. Ghost Highway is another psychedelic rock track with a fast rhythm. This song dates from the band's days as Opal and was initially slated to be the title track of Opal's second album. While not a commercial success, the album did establish Mazzy Star as a unique band with a unique sound. And it says here also, the Blue Flower is a slap happy cover from the 1972 album Sort of. So, what would you say this record's impact has been on you?
I think so. I first heard Opal, and then I heard this, and again, those were in 1991 that I heard them, and then I heard Fade Into You. And honestly, I didn't really like it. At the time, I felt like they were trying to switch genres. And I didn't even know about the Paisley Underground. But at the time, I just really, Hope Sandoval is very mesmerizing. Her voice is mesmerizing. Just, you know, I got to see her in concert and just staring at her. I mean, it was in 1994, they did a collaboration with the Jesus and Mary Chain, and it's just she's just so gorgeous. I mean, just watching her stare at her feet for 2 hours, I didn't think it could be an amazing thing, but it was an amazing thing. I really liked that this album. It seemed to me like this album was full of so many different elements. And then the next album, So Tonight That I Might See, the one with Fade Into You on it, it seemed to me like they were trying to fit more into the college music box, where I felt like this album was much more appropriate for college music because it introduced you to so many different kinds. Like, there's one song, and I think we'll get to this. There's one song that really just sounds like The Doors. I mean, why does it sound like The Doors? It's because they were influenced. You know, it just comes across whoever they were influenced by. You know, they have guitars that sound like the Cocteau Twins or Mighty Bloody Valentine. Like, so there's like, it sounds like The Doors, but they're droning guitars and there are these really lush lyrics and you don't quite know what to do with it, but it's just, they all come together in such a beautiful, haunting way. And that was what I liked about, you know, dream pop and shoegazer in general. And I felt like it was really this album really was a good example of that.
Mm-hmm. So we will now take a dive into the songs on the record here. So all 11 songs are here, and we will start with track number 1. And by the way, this is one time where I wish that I could play song samples on the show without it getting yanked. Though we might be working on that in the near future. So because I took a listen to the first track off of this and was floored by what I heard. Now, for the record, and I don't know if this is be a confession or not, but a lot of the records that people bring to talk about on the show are records I've never heard before. But like I say, this is something that helps expand my musical horizons. And so as a result, we are here. So track number 1, Holla. Talk a little bit about it.
Well, my very favorite thing about Holla, and I'm not a musician, I would consider myself more as a music historian and a DJ. I love the way it starts the album. Like it starts with this very like catchy beat, and the guitars start swirling in, and Hope Sandoval's lush lyrics. You just kind of like, you can't wait to hear this album. So from the very beginning, there's a song that just makes you want to hear what comes next. And that's, you can't get better than that, right? So that's all I really have to say about Holla. Blue Flower, as you said, was a 1972 song by Slap Happy. And honestly, I've never heard the song, the original, but I did hear, which I thought the original, was there's a band called the Pale Saints. One of the big labels in this kind of music is called 4AD. I don't think 4AD exists anymore. But the Cocteau Twins were on 4AD. There were a lot of shoegazer music that was on that label. And so I thought the Pale Saints, I thought that was the original song. Yeah. And so that is much more lush sounding. And so I thought this was a really interesting interpretation of it, because I had no clue it was somebody else's song, but apparently a whole bunch of people have remade this song too. So
yeah, that's one of the great things about when you find out that a song is a cover that you didn't realize was a cover, like Spooky. I grew up all my life up to a certain point thinking that Atlanta Rhythm Section had written that song, but no. They had done a version, or someone Classics 4 or something like that, the band is called. They did the version of it first, like 5-6 years before they did it. But then Atlanta Rhythm Section took it and it just skyrocketed. But it's always nice to just go back and hear the originals of that. I think I'll post the original version of that in the comments.
Oh, good, because I still haven't heard it. Honestly, it's a German band, and I still haven't heard it, and I would really like to hear it because I wonder if it sounds anything like the two versions I know.
We've got a lot of folks in the comments here complimenting your music knowledge.
Oh, thank you.
Really makes me happy. If anyone out there in the comments has any questions for Elana or myself, please feel free to ask them, and we will get to them as we roll along here. So we've knocked out the first 2 tracks here.
Okay.
Now let's go to track 3. Ride It On.
Okay, so one of the things that this album does too is it can be a little heavy-handed because of the droning guitars and because of the lush lyrics, and quite frankly, there's a lot of it that sounds very moody and gloomy, and that is normal for dream pop. A lot of it can be ethereal. There's actually a difference between dream pop and shoegazer in that dream pop is, I think, a little less chaotic, but in an album like this, they're pretty much mixed. So it's really nice to have a song like Write It On because it's lighter. It's lighter, the vocals are lighter, the guitars are lighter, you kind of get a break. There are a couple times in this album that you get a break, and I think that makes the intense song so like you're not overwhelmed by them. If there were 11 tracks like Holla or like one of the songs I'll talk about later, I mean, you wouldn't be able to later listen to it. You would just, when I was, so my first year of college, I'm not good at living with people, but my first year of college, you had to have a roommate. And I remember my roommate coming and telling me that my music made her want to kill herself.
Oh, God.
And I wasn't a big fan of hers, but I didn't want her to be dead. But I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you because this is what I'm listening to. But I mean, clearly we didn't talk after that year. But she's right. I mean, if you had a whole album that sounded like the gloomy Doors during a rainstorm, you wouldn't really be able to deal with it. So, a simple song like Ride It On that just is very straightforward, kind of sing-songy. I wish we could play tracks because it's kind of like a breather. You get a moment, and then it makes you able to handle the next song again.
Mm-hmm. So we'll go from track 3 to the title track of the record, track 4, She Hangs Brightly.
So She Hangs Brightly, that's the song that sounds like the Doors, and that's the song that's really intense. So having Ride It On right before She Hangs Brightly is very important. I love this song, She Hangs Brightly. It sounds like the Doors. You can tell, that it's reminiscent of the Paisley Underground and what they were trying to do with the 60s music. And but I mean, it's not easy to listen to. There are parts that are a little chaotic. There are parts that are this hard rhythmic, and the droning guitars, and Hope's voice is very lush, but she kind of is matter of fact sometimes. So she seems like she almost doesn't care about well, whatever, this is happening. And it's almost like talking to somebody about something really intense, and then every so often you make like a joke that is maybe a little off color because you just need a moment to have a break from it. She Hangs Brightly is the song that you kind of need a break from, but it's really an amazing song. Which brings us into I'm Sailing, which is the next song, which I think also is
Okay,
a little bit
okay, so here's what happened right there. I was gonna
Yeah.
move it ahead from what was it? Ah, damn. So we were going from track 4 to track 5, and I forgot I was muted. So so you went on. I thought, oh, what's going on here? And then I saw that my mic was muted.
I didn't know you were muted. I was like, okay, should I just go?
This is what happens from time to time when you have Swiss cheese brain like I do, and the simple stuff falls out of one of the holes. It can make for prime entertainment. So,
well, I have Swiss cheese brain too, so it's a good thing. I actually made a list for myself.
there you go. There you go.
Because I've listened to the song so many times over the past 30 years that, I mean, I almost can't decipher the song sometimes. Like if somebody says, well, what's your favorite song? Let's listen to that. Like I can't just say, okay, this is a song, because I'm used to listening to it as a piece of work. And so that's why I made myself a little cheat sheet.
There you go. So track 5, I'm Sailing.
So that's also a breather song. It actually does feel kind of breezy. It feels like, to me, it feels like you're sailing. It's like kind of relaxing and dreamy. Like dream pop can be a little intense, and sometimes it can be a little lighter. I mean, we have to realize that even though the music was so different between college and alternative and everything, it's all still pop music. So it's rooted in something. I think it's really interesting also about this album is that you have a song like I'm Sailing, and then you have a song like She Hangs Brightly, and those two songs, like, they're both pop, which is such an interesting thing to realize. I mean, when you're involved in college radio, you're like, well, I don't listen to pop music. But like, you're listening to pop music.
That's how I think how REM kind of suckered everyone in like they did. Of course, I shouldn't say suckered in. I shouldn't say suckered in. They make great music for 30 odd years.
They were college radio too, and then all of a sudden what did they become alternative, or did they hit mainstream first? I can't remember, but I mean, they started in college, right?
Yeah, it was mostly REM was mostly college rock, and then
In Athens, I think.
in Athens, yes, and then I guess with Green, they took sort of the pop turn, and they had that and Out of Time, and then I guess they took the alt turn with Automatic for the People, kind of sorta. But we're not here to talk about REM. We're here to talk about Mazzy
REM, actually. But I'm glad that you brought them up, because I think that it's really indicative of what was happening at the time. Like that, for me personally, I can't imagine that the 90s was 30 years ago. That's really crazy.
Yeah.
But in those 30 years, music has changed so much. So, I mean, now you can listen to whatever you want to listen to. Like, nobody's going to say, ooh, you don't like REM? Well, you're too mainstream for me, and then it was like a big deal, and I think that Mazzy Star and a lot of other bands they had the same limitations that REM did as far as, what's your album going to be? What songs are going to go on that album? And what's going to put you at basically like for college radio, we had conferences. Conferences were a really big thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you had to fit into whatever the category was, but then you kind of had to not fit, and that's how you became alternative, or college music was the way in which you didn't exactly fit, so it was a really interesting time in music. I'm really glad that I got to be a DJ at that time.
God, you were so lucky. And I'm
So amazing.
I'm doing a bit of live fact checking at the moment because, well, I thought it was here, but I guess not. I was trying to think. I was thinking that Mazzy Star had opened for REM on the Green Tour, but that not the Green Tour, but the Monster Tour. But that was not the case. That was just a case of my brain making up fairy tales and all that stuff. So, back on track. This is another thing about, for those of you who are watching this for the very first time, how I talk to people is I'll get the person I'm talking to from point A to point B, but we're going to take a few side roads to get there. So, we go from track.
In this case, it's important to do that, I think. So I think that's really helpful.
So we go from track 5 to track 6. Give You My Lovin'.
Oh, look at that. I didn't write that.
I
missed that one. I know that song though. Okay. So
all good.
I think that one's also kind of a breather. And when I say a breather, I don't mean anything negative about the songs. Like, they're really beautiful, amazing songs. And I wish I knew more about music, because one of the things that is impressive to musicians about Mazzy Star is that they work out of normal timing patterns. I read about it. I don't really understand. But apparently this is one of those songs where they're working out of traditional, what is it? I think
4/4 time.
Yeah, so it's slightly different. But to me, it's also, the song's kind of like a breath of fresh air. I don't know. It's very beautiful. I like it a lot.
So we'll go from track 6 down to track 7. Be My Angel. Yes, Be My Angel.
I love this one. I mean, I love all of them, but this is a highlight for me. This one really is pretty straight dream pop. It's grungy guitar, swirling melodies, lush vocals, and poetic lyrics. So it's very much like, they covered their basis on what dream pop is supposed to be. And another, interesting thing about, there are so many different styles in this one album. So I appreciate that, this is kind of more according to what the genre is. And it's just a great song.
So we'll go from there down to track 8, Taste of Blood.
So Taste of Blood, weirdly enough, is probably one of the poppiest songs on the album, which with the name is a little unusual. And again, it, has the grungy guitars and the lush vocals, and it's definitely dream pop, but it has more of a lighter, I don't know how to explain it. It's more of like if you're dancing, and you can put your foot down, like your full foot down, or you can like put just like the tips of your toes down. This is almost like staying on the tips of your toes. Does that make sense? It's like light and airy, but also, you know, heavy at the same time. So, and I really love this album. The more I talk about it, the more I'm like, wow, I want to listen to it again. I listened to it actually right before this. I listened to it, and then I must have listened to it like 7 times, because I wanted to make sure that I had, you know, each track separate in my mind, but also because like I just couldn't stop listening to it. I think like I had that maybe after like the 3rd time, and then I was just like, yeah, just hit repeat.
So we'll go from Taste of Blood to the aforementioned Ghost Highway, which dates back to the Opal days. Tell us a little bit about that one.
So I actually didn't know that it dated back to the Opal days, but I'm not surprised. It's very dark and gloomy. The thing that's interesting to me about the song, and again, I don't really know exactly how to speak about it, but there's like this chaotic rhythmic thing going on with this this song. So instead of it being like just gloomy, or it like you know, being like lighter, it's both. And yeah, it's I really love that song a lot too. And now I want to go like learn about what the different times are and everything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, now I kind of wish I was a musician and understood more about those things, because, you know, a song like that, like I don't really totally understand what's happening in it, but I know that it sounds just incredible. And then there's a lot of layers, you know, everything's very layered. And
so we will go from there to track number 10, Free.
so
about
Free is kind of more like a shoegazer song. And really, they're very similar. But the reason why I say it's more like a shoegazer song is because it has more of like a dreamy echo effect. So it's not as dark or as haunting as some of the other more intense songs. This one is more like yeah, it has like, it's very lush sounding, while still being, you know, moody sounding, and it's just, I mean, that's one of the things I love about this album, is that there's so much, you're learning about so many different kinds of music in 11 songs.
Yeah. So speaking of 11, we are coming up now to the 11th and final track on this great record, Before I Sleep.
So this song, I believe, is really short. I think the song is like under 2 minutes. And
it's 2 minutes, 10 seconds.
2 minutes and 10 seconds. So I kind of think it's like I kind of think of it as like a bookend. You know, when you start Holla, you're like, you're ready to go, and the music brings you up, and you're like, you can't wait for the album. And Before I Sleep kind of winds things down, because one of the other things that happens when you have, you know, 11 tracks that are so different, you know, I mean, some even coming from a whole different band and a whole different style, like the songs coming from Opal, you know, I think that it's important to have that kind of structure. So, you know, it would be easy to just kind of stop and have people like, okay, well, now it's over. But, you know, it's like a bow at the end of the album. And for me personally, it makes me just want to go listen to Holla again. start the process.
I see now why once you listen to it once, you just fall in a loop and go over and over and over. Yeah. So, any other comments or anything about this record?
Well, I'm really, really glad that, it's so when you think about the 90s being 30 years ago, which I have difficulty thinking about that. I just don't feel like I'm approaching 50. Like that just seems crazy to me. So when you think about it and it really made me think about how different the 90s were as opposed to how music now is. And it also made me like, I used to get so angry when people would say that Mazzy Star is a one-hit wonder. But, so Tonight That I Might See went platinum, and they kind of are a one-hit wonder if you look at them that way. But because I came from college radio, there's a whole life underneath them being a one-hit wonder. This album went gold, which for college radio isn't bad. I mean, that's still very respectable. So I'm really glad to have the opportunity to show people, that bands that are one-hit wonders, they often are not really one-hit wonders because a lot of work went into them getting that one hit. And just to wrap it up also, they started on, I believe it was Rough Trade, which then dissolved, and then they went to Capitol. Capitol just wanted their foot in the door of this kind of music. So when they first went to them, when Mazzy Star first joined Capitol, Capitol was pretty hands-off, and they just let them do their thing. And that's really what they wanted to do, was create music. I mean, they didn't want to be famous. They didn't want to do anything else. They were very, very happy with their fan base being in college music. And then all of a sudden Capitol is like, hey, you guys can make platinum albums. Let's make some more. And unfortunately, that's not what they wanted to do. And so the next album kind of tanked. I think it was 300,000. And fortunately, that allowed them to get out of their contract with Capitol. But it also kind of, I didn't know the band was, Hope Sandoval is playing with somebody else. I didn't know that, I thought that they had a couple other albums and I didn't know that they went into, 2018, 2016. So, I guess there's good and bad to it. So I think it's just interesting from, I'm very interested in music from a historical perspective. And so I think that, doing this really let me see the bigger picture around them. So thank you.
Thank you for coming on. And just one thing more before we sort of tie everything up, put a bow on it. No, I'm so happy that I'm not the only one that's geeked out by the 90s being so long ago. As someone's about to be 26 this year, it just...
Oh my God,
I'm on the backside of my 20s. I can't believe this. I'm looking... 30 is looking me in the eye, and it's an ugly beast.
It's really not, though. It's really, I look at it this way, and I kind of got thrown off because, I haven't really been able to be in my 40s because I've been sick the whole time. I see people as their own history books. And so I think it's fascinating that, you think about what did you live through, you lived through a quarter century of all of this stuff. It's so amazing. And I'm not upset about approaching 50. It's like, I've seen all of these incredible things happen during my lifetime. It just doesn't really seem right.
I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm
Okay.
laughing at one of the comments that's coming in from our
Oh.
dear MM Farwell. She
Oh, I
says, if
didn't
you
say
say the 90s were 30 years ago one more time, we ain't going to be friends anymore. That's what I was laughing about. I swear to God, I wasn't laughing at what you were saying.
If
It's just MM cracking me up.
Yeah, if anybody though has lived a life that is book worthy, it's her.
Yeah, definitely true. So, Elana, thank you for coming
Thank
on
you,
the
John.
show. It's been an absolute thrill to talk with you
Thank
and to
you.
talk about Mazzy Star with you. I hope you have a great rest of your night up there in
You too.
Pittsburgh, and everyone that has commented and showed love and support. Thank you for doing so. Without you all, none of this would be possible. Take care, one and all. Much love. God bless. And have a wonderful night wherever you might be in this wide world of ours. Take care.
Good night. Thank you.